discuss the reasons of this war. Also, as we see, Germans cannot understand why Ukrainians are resistant. And maybe after this discussion you will understand it. Also, our whole program has name Citizenship Ukraine. And the first question that I would like to address to our participants is if it's possible to be citizens of a totalitarian state.
It's very good that the previous speaker mentioned the influence. This was the word that sounded here. Influence of the Soviet Union, and I think this is pretty what we want to discuss here. And is it possible to be a citizen of a totalitarian state? I think it's impossible, the short answer. And the long answer is that you've heard the stories, what's happening in Kherson, how people live there, under what conditions. And it's not only Kherson, I think it's also all the occupied Ukraine, and also it's occupied Crimea, and also occupied Donbass and Luhansk region. And I think what is happening now in Ukraine, and why Ukraine is resistant, is the Ukrainians are fighting for their chance, for their opportunity, not chance, for the opportunity to be a citizen, to be the citizens of their own state. And why it is impossible to be a citizen of the totalitarian state? Because probably you don't have like living under totalitarianism, or just simply people lose the right to care about their political life. And political, I mean in a very broad sense. It's like I'm also interested in talking about everyday political gesture. Like for me, political gesture is speaking Ukrainian. So they don't have a chance, like under the death threat, under the stress of abduction, under the threat of torture. They don't have any right to show their political, to show themselves politically. And they just become taking care of their like food, of their life, and it's you don't belong to any kind of state. You just in some kind of, you are in some kind of shelter of taking care of provision and your health. And I just want to share what I felt. Everyone told this on the 21st of February. This was when I read that the war has started. I just imagine a Russian soldier standing in front of, I was in Kiev, standing in front of my window with a machine gun. And for me, this was the first thought: I will not be able to speak Ukrainian. And this is political, and this is of not being able to be a citizen, and this is what is this fight about also.
Okay, Larissa, now you're forcing me to talk about Russia in the very beginning, which I'm not really comfortable with, but I'll do it as you answer me. Whether it's possible to be a citizen of a totalitarian state, I will propose an alternative argument to you, Mariana. Citing Lev Gudkov, is a Russian-based sociologist who has been running an independent institute for a long time, and he is still conducting a public survey, and he is documenting the high rate of support the the war Russia waged against Ukraine gets. We know all about it. It's about 70% of the people. And he recently has been asked why this support, and he said, well, most of the people try to explain it by fear. They say that Russians are afraid of the consequences they might have to suffer when they try to resist or even try to articulate, some oppositional views. And he said, no, I think that's not the main reason. The main reason, he said, I think, is that Russians do have nothing else left than their Russian citizenship. Over at least the 8 years the war is already going on, but probably for a much longer time, maybe 2000 when Putin came to power, really the society and citizenship, alternatives have been systematically destroyed. And now people are afraid of, okay, if I now acknowledge that the state I live in is nothing but a terrorist state, who am I then? I have to find something in this kind of citizenship. And this is not a very comforting explanation, but I am afraid there might be a core of truth in it. And of course, when you think now whether citizenship in Ukraine and in occupied parts of Ukraine, you see what real a healthy motivation for citizenship can be. You just described it, right? So, and what we see in Kherson, what we have seen right now, gives us a totally different example of citizenship that is evolving out of a motivation to defend your country, to bring progress to your country, to liberate it, and so on.
Yeah, I know you are an expert in Slavic studies. Yeah, and my question mostly not about contemporary Russia, but about Soviet Union. About this totalitarianism that it's actually a blind spot of Europeans, because Germans know only about their own totalitarianism, but not about Soviet. And what do you think in Soviet Union, was it possible to be citizens?
I think it's basically an analogous fact that, yes, people who were born and raised in Stalinist Soviet Union and identified themselves with this system, they were citizens of this system, and they strived to be citizens of this systems. And when we analyze text from this period, people really wrote in private contexts and even in public contexts, you can really show that they are trying very, very hard to educate themselves and to discipline themselves to become citizens. So we have diaries, for example, from where people are really writing, oh, I have bad thoughts, I have to eliminate them, I have to become a good Soviet citizen. So yes, but the question is always, what kind of citizenship is this?
Yeah, just a moment, I was born there in Soviet Union, and I think it wasn't about citizenship, it was about to be loyal, to be accurate with this power, or to be brave and go to jail. I think I don't remember this word from my childhood or my youngest. It wasn't this word actually.
I want to answer to your question of why we have blind spot. In Germany, you have blind spot.
Okay. So please about.
I just have this. Just before I was translating this, maybe. I imagine that citizenship has to deal with some kind of agency, and what you are talking about deals with some kind of belonging to something bigger than you, and it doesn't, and you are happy with this belonging to a bigger idea, and this is, as I understand it, they're one of the main features of totalitarianism, and like this kind of story of a guy who was in captivity and then he was told, okay, we give you your freedom, but you reveal your friends and you work for us. So this is kind of citizenship of totalitarian or of a Soviet Union.
Okay, and about blind spot.
Yeah, but agency is a very important argument, you're right. About the blind spot, the Soviet totalitarian past, I think, blindly spoken or roughly spoken, in Germany for a long time we had other problems. Or we thought that we had other and more important problems, mainly and most importantly dealing with our totalitarian past, right? This was for us, of course, the main focus. Not always because we wanted to. We were not the exemplary kind of people who were, oh yes, let's critically engage with our past. Germans had to really be forced to do that. But then when it started, it lasted for quite a long while, and it had a very strong focus on the home in the first place. And so it was mostly about this, and everything that happened beyond the Iron Curtain happened beyond the Iron Curtain. So there was not really a very urgent need to deal with that, because there were quite a few contacts with the countries beyond the curtain. And then in Germany, in the late 70s, early 80s, there began a discussion, a so-called Historikerstreit for the German people audience, where, again, roughly spoken, there were some intellectuals who tried to argue that, well, you have to acknowledge the fact that the Soviet totalitarianism laid the ground for what happened later in the Holocaust. And that had a you might agree, but you are not German, and back then there was a really great fear that this might be the beginning of a revisionist epoch in German history. So progressive people back then said, no, you must not do this. Our totalitarianism is totally unique, and it's much worse. I'm really doing it very shortly, but so from this on, they really developed the idea of that there is a taboo of comparison, right? And there is always you have to place the Holocaust in the center of German progressive post-national identity, and everything that is really a little less than the Holocaust. So all the extermination that has been going on when the Germans, invaded Soviet Union, it was somehow below the spot of
but why under this Iron Curtain it was only Russia?
Yeah, that's a very good question, and it's a question that really makes me, as a German, very often I'm ashamed and I'm very angry, and I'm absolutely astonished how this can last so long. We have made some progress in the last year, I have to say that, but well, most of the times it's really that people in Germany somehow appropriate the logic of Russia and consider Russia to be the center of the Soviet Empire, and of course it has been a center of another empire before that. So of course it's Russia, and we lost the war to Russia. There is really, this is somehow a very short version of our German guilt that has become very, very persistent in our minds and head, and it really is our important task to fight this right now.
Mariana, what do you think about the blind spot of Europeans, Germans?
Yeah, I've read about this huge discussion, and that, like, starting the conversation about comparison between Soviet Union and Nazi German somehow, in opinion of some German intellectuals, very influential, deprives Holocaust its singularity, which is a bit strange to me, because Holocaust is like such a terrible thing that I can't, like, if I just ask myself, and I also ask you maybe to think about, if like something the same scale happens simultaneously on the other part of the planet, does it make what already happened like less terrible? Or like if you bring it to a like really simple level, if you have one friend that has died when the other friend died, is this loss like less painful? So for me, like this is very strange strive for the uniqueness of something that happened, and like we know from the historical fact that it's like it's horrible. It's some people call it undescribable, but also only because the Americans and the Britain didn't come to the concentration camps in the Soviet Union and didn't open them and didn't film them and didn't show it to the whole world. Have these, all the people that died are less terrible?
So as they are just less people.
And yeah, so this is like my things I'm thinking about, and also the second very important thing about comparison of Soviet totalitarianism and German Nazi totalitarianism. You know that in Soviet Union it was forbidden. So there is a very nice movie of Mikhail Roman where he tells about Germans, about the Nazis, and Soviet people could read that there is a very evident hint on Soviet Union. And this was like, you can read it, it's a long story, I will not tell you, but this very comparison was really, you could go in jail or kidnapped, or like you're not allowed to do it. And this also the question, like when you don't allow people, when intellectuals, I speak first and foremost of the intellectuals as responsible because they are thinkers, agree not to compare, like which game are they playing and on which side are they?
Yeah, okay, it's a question for you maybe, and if somebody would like to talk about, please maybe raise your hand. But yes, the next what I would like to ask, it's is it possible to stop totalitarianism somehow? I mean, without Americans and Britons come and because in our situation it's just you see what is happening, why it's not stopped by somebody from outside.
Yes, I think I think it's possible, but it's I think even Russians can stop it if they want. I'll like I think if this is
sorry, if it will be some Russians, because I think, for example, that it's no Russians at all. It's new communist human that cannot stop anything.
Yes, but yeah, but my idea, maybe it's a bit idealistic, but I think if the resistance in occupied Kherson is possible, and we know, like for sure, from people who managed to get out of this region, that it's possible, that's possible in Russia, but it's very demanding on different levels. It demands like everyday agency, and not only like big gestures, go to the square, like protest, but also like everyday gestures.
But you know, in this case of Kherson, it's something outside Kherson, and it's a Ukrainian army, for example. And in this case, if you have somebody outside, it could be stopped, but outside Russia, who is outside Russia?
Good Russians. You know, I don't know if you know, but we have a big discussion in Ukraine about good Russians who suffer a lot because they didn't manage, that they are in opposition to the Putin regime and they are abroad and they are basically good, and we Ukrainians are bad. In which context? Because we are not like feeling empathic to them. So yeah, I'm not talking about everyone. I'm not feeling empathic to them because I think they should fight for their own country, but not demand.
Yes, they actually could join Ukrainian army.
Back to the big task of stopping totalitarianism. I have no answer to this really, but when I'm thinking, what everybody has to ask him or herself, what can I do? And I think in Germany, as we are in Germany, and I'm German, I think the least we can do is that we really have to acknowledge ourselves and to bring others to acknowledge the fact that we are dealing with a war that is being waged by a terrorist state that is in a totalitarian dynamic. Because this is not always the case in Germany. We read the arguments about, yeah, well, there are considerable security interests that have been violated or not been understood. So you mentioned, so the Schleiermacher himself said, yeah, Putin's probably frustrated. Poor guy. And this is what we really have to do, to work on the elimination of those blind spots and to show what is really going on in Russia, that really the dynamic is one of a totalitarian state, and this is an expansive dynamic, as we can unfortunately see. And second, that Ukraine is an absolute independent and absolute, not somehow affiliated victim of this aggression, and not some part of the former imperial sphere that can be just reunited with, and somehow this totalitarian thirst will be stopped. Because in Germany, unfortunately, these are quite popular arguments. So at least that's what we can do in Germany.
Okay, and what do you think about the connection between these utopian communist ideas and totalitarianism? I mean, I think, for example, that this war not only about some imperial intentions of Russia, but it's mostly about how to reconstruct the Soviet Union. And Soviet Union was based on communist ideas, and yeah, what we see as a result, we see concentration camps. Now we see filtration camps and camps. Yeah. What do you think about this connection between utopia and, maybe Mariana, between utopia and concentration camp?
I think, like, Ukrainians don't want to live in a concentrated camp, but also, maybe this is not the direct answer to your question, but what is in my head right now is the demand, somehow there is a, like, not, we're talking about intellectual efforts. So as Heike mentioned, that to stop totalitarianism, we need an intellectual effort of acknowledging the world, what it is. Like, this is not just, fight, the simple fight between two nations. I don't know, they just don't share the territory or something. There is a more sophisticated level of this fight, which is really fight against terrorist, totalitarian state that wants to have more and more spheres of influence. And the ideas of there are ideas that, okay, yes, but we are still, I'm like a lot of people tell, I'm against war. They just want, we are for peace, we are for peaceful resistance. We don't share this this idea of war in general. So we can't do anything with you poor Ukrainians, because we just give up, because war is bad. This is what we like. It's very rough, very simplified version, but this is how I personally perceive it. And the thing is that okay, you can be against war, but then when there is a terrorist state that it comes to you and threatens with a lot of weapons, then you need to have someone who stops this terrorist state. And imagine you have some superpower. Let's speculate. You have superpower to stop this state. Then you install peace in the whole world. For example, you have superpower, you install peace and no war at all. But then, still, you need someone to control this, someone to install this peace. And this is a very utopian idea of the Soviet Union. So what I'm telling, maybe not really beautifully, but the idea of killing everyone who prevents from installing communist paradise, and then we'll live in friendship, we'll share everything will be common. We just need to kill several millions of people, and then it will be okay. So basically, maybe these intellectuals don't acknowledge this, but they are thinking the same as Russian special forces, we call these Chekists, who are now secret service, as Russian secret service. And Putin just acknowledged him, came from the secret service and directly represents it, to which ideas it brings it.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I think that this is. I'm not that elaborate in this in the answer to that question, but I think it's obvious that Putin and his camp, they want to reinstall or reconstruct maybe the Soviet Union, or they want to regain the territory, but they surely do not want to re-establish a left communist utopia. The whole discourse in Russia is absolutely far right. It is a far right ideology that is being built. So this is why we have to be very disgusted by this projection, calling, finding Nazis in Ukraine everywhere, whereas Russia is turning into a really, really far right state, if not just a fascist state. Right now, what is going on, all the camps and all those horrible things we see are, in my view, not really connected to any utopian communist ideas, but just this is just a reuse of terror mechanisms and practices that have been very well established, and people know how to do it and they do it again. So that's kind of.
Yes, but what is dangerous with left ideas is that Russia is still perceiving as a left something. Yeah. And also, I think all these people in Russia, actually, they are still dreaming about communism. And for example, these people in Donetsk, in this so-called DNR, the Donetsk People Republic, they are actually not just now living in some kind of communist or Soviet or something. Yes, they have all these symbols of Soviet. And yeah, it's about people. It's I mean, not Putin, of course, because Putin is how Marina told, it's Chekist. And yes, but people in Russia and people these occupied Ukrainian territories, not Kherson but east, they are actually, I think, thinking that they are living in some kind of Soviet Union. I mean, this kind of perceiving, yeah. Okay. Now about Ukraine, and what do you think? Maybe the West has to say that it was a mistake. Disarmament of Ukraine in 1994. But it's politicians of the Western politicians actually not doing this. I mean, nobody tell about it. That it was a great mistake. Yeah. What do you think about it?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Of course, I mean, we have all those politicians being interrogated right now and being asked about their personal mistakes and the strategic and systematic mistakes, and some of them say they are not in office anymore, they don't want to answer that. Some of them say that it was at the time the right thing to do, to believe, you know, in a bright future without weapons and a peaceful Russian partner. But yeah, this is really, I think right now this is probably not the time for this discussion in Germany. It's more important right now to understand that, okay, weapons are a legitimate instrument of ending the war, because we have this, you know, besides the fact that we obviously have little weapons in the Bundeswehr, we are afraid to sell them or to support them, and we have political, you know, issues with that. So this, I think, is more about the problem right now.
But it's also a question of responsibility. I mean, not only Germany, of course, but it's a question of responsibility of this West, big West, with America. What it was, and now I asked Mariana, what do you think about Ukrainian politicians? What it was actually this
Giving up nuclear weapons to Russia? I think it was a gesture of loyalty. Ukraine was very...
Not citizenship, but
loyalty to Western ideas, to their loyalty to their world order that somehow was installed in 1945, and like we just declared, okay, like we're a democratic state, and like we can prove it. Okay, we give our power. Like, yeah, we Ukrainians, our authorities, our president at the time, our parliament tried to show that we are loyal, that we will follow the Western values, and if Western values is disarmament, we will follow that. We believe that this will work. And I think the problem now for Ukrainians, it doesn't exist because we faced like really existential threat. So we like aware when you face existential threat, you make immediately right decisions. But for the West is the necessity to rethink the whole political order, the whole worldview that was installed after the Second World War, they're just not ready because they didn't face this existential threat yet. But this is my personal appeal to the Western world. Don't wait until existential threat comes to you.
Okay, and now I would like to propose to you to ask audience some questions.
Yeah, my question was simple. Like, I would like to know how. Like, I know about Ukrainians. Maybe then I would ask Germans to speak. How would you personally compare the Soviet and Nazi totalitarian, like it's not even states, regimes? If not, why not? So what prevents
Please, Matthias.
Well, I think this needs to be discussed by historians, and I think there are many of them in Germany, but I'm not one of them. But in general, to compare. Well, I think in general, to compare, there needs to be a third, ein drittes, ne? Ein Vergleichsgrund. And this is a huge discussion, and so I would not open it, but I think what was also mentioned today, it's about overcoming, or about the discourse in societies. It's also about education, it's about reflection that started when we look at the totalitarian regime, Drittes Reich in Germany. Well, for me, in my generation, like the so-called third generation, maybe a little bit late. But I think, this plays a role in this. There still needs to be a lot of things needs to be done, but I think this is something that really needed, at least one generation, and needed to be to get some ground in the German society and in the educational systems and so on and so on. That's all I can say as a non-historian, but maybe there are some historians here who even know it better.
No, I'm far away from being a historian. And I think that's exactly the point I want to make. I think it's really hard for Germans because a lot of information was missing. So I have a 13-year education in Germany. And I had, one of my majors was social studies, but really there was only that comparison between capitalism and communism, and maybe that was a 2 or 3 month topic. Yeah? We did not hear much about life in the UdSSR. And there was really an iron curtain. Even I organized my first travel to the GDR when I was 15 because I wanted to visit my pen pal. But there was such a gap of knowing about the life circumstances and really also the political issues that I think it's a lack of knowing that also prevents us, besides the shame issue that we equate the Shoah, which is also only a part of the Holocaust. This is something even Germans still grapple with, that there were political prisoners first and foremost, homosexuals, Sinti and Roma people, and so on. that Shoah was one part of it. That was maybe the unique thing. Yeah, so I'm rambling, but I think it's so important to come into contact and to learn from each other. And yeah, I think that's why we are not equipped to even make a judgment in the broad society. And I think just as a side, I lived in the USA for quite a while, and German history, Germany has that history, or West Germany, where I grew up, has that history of being kind of, sort of, still culturally and politically, being kind of ex or current occupied territory. And that also comes with, I know, a lot of American culture, the American system, and so on. So yeah, it's very complex. And talking about fascism, I'm fearing that we very soon have the world centers being fascist, and that's not a pretty picture.
Can you raise your hand, please? Okay.
Okay, I'm not German, I'm Ukrainian. I just want to react about what was said before. I would like to remember Susan Sontag's book regarding the pain of others. She writes there that victims of Holocaust don't like twinning, or victims of genocide don't like twinning. I'm sorry for this. I think that for Ukrainians now it's important to understand the uniqueness of what is going on in Ukraine. Okay, we can draw on other contexts, but and this is very strong in Jewish narrative of Holocaust that emphasizes on the uniqueness of Holocaust. So I think now it's important to listen to this voice. Thank you.
But if we will say about uniqueness of Holocaust and uniqueness of this war, and you know, it's we have only different kinds of uniqueness.
I find it very interesting, very important to think, because we have not right now really, when looking at what's going on in Ukraine, we compare it to World War II all the time, and it's really, I think this is one legitimate thing to do, but it's really important to see what is going on and to understand the singularity of it.
Hi, I kind of am interested in shifting conversation back to Ukraine and its uniqueness, but also I think I agree with the person that spoke before me that it's important to centralize the unique experience that Ukrainians have, but going off of that, what is it that, how do Ukrainians see themselves in all of this? So I'm Polish, I live in New York, I kind of have I see a lot of takes being made, but what is it that actually, like, how do you all see yourselves vis-a-vis the European Union, vis-a-vis the West? I'm assuming that you don't want to be liberated by anyone, and that's a bad idea, but also how do we end this? I'm really curious about that, since this is a unique situation. Just like every situation is unique.
Yes, for some reason I need to think about it. I don't like this uniqueness. Like it's definitely a history. Yeah. Ah, sorry. Yeah.
You start.
Okay.
Sorry. Yeah. So I just wanted to, because it was a question to Ukrainians. How do I see it? As I told in the beginning, I see it as a fight for our citizenship, for the ability to be a citizen of my own country. And like Ukraine was celebrating its independence in 1991, and we were really happy, like my parents or grown-ups, because I was a 2-year kid at the time, that it was peaceful, and it was for so long time we like celebrated this peaceful, but it turned out that unfortunately it can't be peaceful. So you need to fight for it. And yeah, this is the fight for our existence. And by chance, I don't know, by the coincidence or by fate or by whatever, it's also the fight against authoritarian, totalitarian state, which we used to be a part of. And so we, like, which kind of support we want, we can fight for our existence, but please help us to fight against this totalitarian state, because it's powerful and it's bigger, and yeah, we're ready, but we need some like help from Ukraine now.
Okay, I'm also Ukrainian, and I would like to answer. I see myself as responsible for totalitarian past, because I'm an old person. Yes, actually I spent less than half, but almost half of my life in the Soviet Union. And I think if you just live in this totalitarian state, you are responsible for this state, because it's you are not slave, yeah, you are human, free human, and you have to. Yeah, you have to be aware. You have to be aware that all your action in this state actually support this state. Yeah, I prefer to speak about responsibility of Ukrainians also for this totalitarian past. And now Ukraine, I think, fighting for some kind of exit from Soviet Union, and yeah, please help us to exit, because if it will be without success, this evil will come. I can guarantee it, because maybe you know it was a big country, yeah, with the Baltic states, and with, you know, Warsaw Agreement. And it was part of Germany. Yeah, I'm Ukraine now. Yeah, please.
Well, I come back to some topic.
Yeah, please.
I went to school here in the 70s, and National Socialism has been a topic all the time, for many years. And I was also interested what happens behind the Iron Curtain, so I watched GDR television, at least I traveled there quite sometimes, and at least to get an impression. But what came out for me already when I was young is that people got traumatized, and when people suffer, when people get traumatized, it touches me. And this is always the same thing. It doesn't matter where it happens and how it happens. Just that it happens, that is my story. It becomes my story. And the other thing is, I'm a teacher, and my impression is that the young people get more and more sensitive, and also sensible for justice, for a question of justice. And I think there is a potential for the future, maybe the far future, but there is a potential that we deal with things differently. At this point of time, I totally understand how you manage things. yeah, also in Ukraine or in Europe. I agree with that in a way, but it can't be the future. So I have the future in mind, and I think that there will be other opportunities, other ways in future really to find peace in all parts of our earth, just by being empathic, by feeling what the other human suffers, what the other human feels. That is far away now, but I think that is the direction.
You just don't know Soviet people, I think.
Just one thought. Sorry, because you talk about empathy and that it's a far way to go. It reminds me of of an animated short movie.
Cartoon.
Yes, cartoon. Thank you. That had the. Ukrainians probably know it, the Marciani, and there has been a very popular Soviet cartoon series, and recently there was a new episode being published on YouTube, and it's called but the episode is called Mariupol. Yeah. Say that, I can't hear you.
Mariupol.
Yeah, Mariupol. So it's Petersburg, Mariupol. So in here, the author tells the story of Russia is being attacked by China. So everything that has been happening with Mariupol and Ukrainians in Mariupol now is being projected and told, in the frame of a war, China waging war against Russia. And the very simple logic, or how do you say this, Gelehre, is, okay, dear Russians, so this is, imagine, be empathic, please. So you said you don't know, so that's really, and this is really striking, that this has to be done, that you have to tell the story this way in order to make Russian people understand that it's bad what's going on. That's really, so this is just to illustrate how far.
For a moment, yeah.
Hi, I'm not German, I'm not Ukrainian, but I would love to express my gratitude for brave Ukrainians who are sitting here and dealing with very important topic for German society. I'm very sad that there are no people who say that they would love to stop this war. I speak about these liberal Germans who have to be here, and I really understand why Ukrainian people need to speak with these people. I understand it because I'm from Belarus. I did a film for which I have a huge trouble in my country. I'm living in exile in Germany, and I understand very well your voice. I done this 2 years. I tried to speak with German society. I understood that German society is so far to be really understand our all details, all these nuance in our ex-Soviet reality. To be honest, there are a lot of work for us, Ukrainians, Belarusians, and other countries, to bring this nuance visible. Chapeau, bravo! It's a huge task. I hope that we could done it in 10-50 years. But to be honest, I'm not so optimistic. I cried 2 years with my films, and nobody speak about right now in Belarus. Yeah, and I really hope that in 2 years, people in Germany will speak about Ukraine. I really hope, and it's your task, it is our task, and it's also German task. Thank you for your courage, and I really hope that this debate will going and spring in documenta places, and spring after documenta in German society, in art society places, because it's our duty, guys. German artists, not only Ukrainian and Belarusian artists, it's our common duty. Thank you so much. Slava Ukraini, Живи Беларусь.
Thank you very much. I think it's a great finale. And thank you very much for your attention and for your answers. And Slava Ukraini.
So this is a technical break. We also want to stay healthy and